Right now, you have the chance to change how you approach work and life. In this video, you'll learn how to get obsessed with the work itself, not just the results. You'll discover practical ways to build unstoppable routines, focus deeply, and make every action meaningful. By the end, you'll know exactly how to train your mind to enjoy the process, track real progress, and create systems that make discipline automatic. These steps will help you stay consistent, reduce frustration, and turn effort into growth every single day. You'll walk away with actionable strategies to take control of your habits, improve focus, and turn small, steady actions into long-term success. Subscribe to Audiobook Shift for more powerful insights that will guide your personal growth, boost your daily discipline, and help you achieve lasting success while staying motivated in every step of your journey. Number 1. Build routines that trigger action. Routines are the quiet architecture of achievement. When action becomes automatic, the mind expends less energy convincing itself to begin and more energy doing the work that matters. The first step is understanding that obsession with the work does not arrive suddenly. It is built daily through repeated, deliberate acts that train attention and shrink resistance. This chapter shows how to build routines that trigger action, not as a checklist to be admired, but as a practical system you can use today to make work inevitable. Start by noticing the shape of the day. The moments before work are decisive. The walk from the bed to the desk, the phone check, the coffee poured, the hesitation that sits like a weight. Those small moments either feed avoidance or fuel momentum. Design the moments. Choose one tiny, non-negotiable action that always precedes the work. It can be as simple as opening a specific notebook, putting earbuds in, or turning on a lamp. This cue must be sensory and repeatable: the click of a light, the smell of coffee, the feel of the notebook beneath your palm. The brain learns patterns. Pairing a consistent cue with work builds a neural shortcut. Cue, routine, reward. Over time, the cue triggers the routine without argument. Make the routine tiny at first. The 2-minute rule is not a trick. It solves the problem of starting. When the barrier to begin is low, the only battle is to show up. Commit to a start that lasts 2 minutes. Write one sentence. Open the code editor. Plank for 30 seconds. Or sketch a single line. 2 minutes defeats inertia and often turns into 20 or 60. When the goal is only to begin, perfectionism loses power. Craft the exact start action in plain language. At 8 a.m., I will sit at my desk, open project.exe and write one sentence. Write that sentence down and tape it where it will be seen. The clarity removes negotiation. Stack habits to make initiation almost unavoidable. Habit stacking attaches a new action to an existing trusted routine. If a shower always happens, use it as a launch pad. After the shower, sit for 5 minutes with a notebook and write the single task that will define the session. If brewing coffee is fixed, after pouring the coffee, open the work file. This leverages the power of what is already stable to create more stability. Habit stacking is a simple tool. Pick an anchor, pick a tiny action, repeat until the association is automatic. Design the environment to make work the path of least resistance. Remove the things that invite distraction from the immediate space. If the phone is a temptation, leave it in another room or place its screen down inside a drawer. If social media is the thief of attention, install site blockers for defined work hours. Rearrange the desk so that the items that represent work, a single notebook, a pen, the project folder, are physically closer than the items that steal time. Sensory cues signal the brain. The sight of a clean desk says work. The glow of a phone says play. Make the work cues louder and the distraction cues quieter. Schedule with intention. A routine needs a consistent time window. Time blocking converts vague intent into a promise to oneself. Block a specific period each day for the highest value work, even if it is only 30 minutes. Protect the block like an appointment with a disciplined friend. Write the block on the calendar and set a reminder that triggers a minute before. During the block, use a focused work method, a single goal, a timer, and no multitasking. The combination of a concrete start time and a clear short-term objective prevents pulverization of effort into fragments. Repetition of this block across days builds momentum and deepens engagement. Use pre-commitments to prevent reasoning from undoing action. Commit publicly or to a trusted partner about the routine and the outcome metric. Public commitment leverages social cost. Personal commitment leverages integrity. If accountability to others does not fit, create a consequence that matters to you. If the routine is missed 3 times, donate to a cause you dislike, or give up a leisure treat for a week. Pre-commitment reduces the chance that a moment of weakness becomes a habit of failure. Create ritualized beginnings and endings. Rituals are signals that bracket the work chunk and protect the psychological investment. Begin with a short ritual that prepares body and mind. 3 deep breaths, 5 lines of freehand in a notebook, or reading the first paragraph of a foundational text. End with a ritual that records progress. Write 3 facts about what went well, list 1 obstacle, and note the next small action. These rituals close the loop. The beginning ritual breaks the resistance, and the ending ritual consolidates gains and primes the brain for the next session. The ending ritual is crucial because obsession needs visible progress, even if small. Measure effort, not results. A routine is sustained by observable inputs. Track repeatable metrics, minutes of focused work, sessions completed, or pages written. Use a simple tracker, a paper calendar with X's for each session, or an app that records time. Celebrate the streaks. Recognition of consistency rewires motivation away from outcome-based anxiety. This kind of tracking is not about punishment. It is feedback that shows whether the structure is working. If the days are counted, the habit becomes visible and therefore defendable. Disrupt boredom by introducing variation inside structure. Routines must be stable but not dull. Change the setting sometimes. Take work outside, switch to standing for a session, or use voice notes instead of typing. Choose a new micro-challenge every week. A speed round, a constraints experiment, or a small deadline. Those variations keep the nervous system interested while preserving the core ritual. The point is to prime focus, not novelty. The obsession sought here thrives on concentrated practice. The occasional variation simply prevents dullness from eroding the practice. Anticipate friction and plan for it. Identify the predictable obstacles: tiredness after lunch, emails that demand attention, decision fatigue in the evening, and write a plan for each. When fatigue hits, the routine could shift to a lower cognitive demand activity that still advances the project: research, editing, organizing files. When interruptions loom, set an auto-reply and a status indicating focus mode. When emotional resistance surfaces, acknowledge it with exact words. This is resistance. The next 2 minutes are for work. Naming the barrier reduces its power. The routine's role is to outmaneuver excuses by having pre-made solutions. Anchor identity to action. Routines are powerful because they align behavior with identity. Change the inner statement. Replace "I try to work" with "I am someone who starts work at 8 a.m." Identity follows repeated action more reliably than affirmation alone. Use a brief identity sentence as part of the beginning ritual. Say it quietly, write it in the notebook, or glance at a card taped to the lamp. When identity is in sync with routine, the brain prefers actions that maintain that identity. Missing a routine becomes a dissonant event the brain wants to resolve. Practice patience and steady refinement. Routines are experiments. Keep a simple log for 2 weeks and note what works and what does not. Be precise. Did the 2-minute start lead to 20 minutes? Which cue failed to trigger? Adjust fast, but never for the sake of novelty. If a routine is abandoned, examine which part failed: the cue, the environment, the time, or the reward. Fix the weakest link. Small, consistent changes compound into a different life. Finally, treat flow as reward, but not the sole goal. The deeper the routine, the more often flow emerges. Flow strengthens the obsession with the work because effort becomes pleasurable through absorption. But flow cannot be chased directly. Build conditions for flow: clear goals, immediate feedback, and a balance between challenge and skill, and let it appear as a byproduct. The routine is the vessel that carries attention to that place. Actionable steps to begin today. Choose one high-value project. Pick a sensory cue. Define a 2-minute start action in exact words. Schedule a daily 30-minute block for that project on the calendar. Remove the primary distraction from your workspace. Decide on a simple beginning ritual and a short ending ritual, and track each session on a paper calendar. Repeat this every day for 2 weeks. Review what changed, and tune the cue or timing as needed. The work that becomes obsession is not enslaving, it is clarifying. Routines free attention from petty choices, so the mind can commit fully to craft. Obsession grounded in practice is calm, disciplined, and resilient. The steady repetition of small, deliberate acts will shape both skill and character. Start with one tiny, unarguable action and build out over time. The routine will not feel like restriction but like an opening, a clean door through which sharp focus, deep satisfaction, and meaningful progress walk in together. Number 2, remove distractions, blocking deep focus. Distractions are not just interruptions. They are the slow erosion of attention, the subtle siphoning of mental energy that leaves the mind scattered, frustrated, and incapable of deep work. Removing distractions is not a one-time action, but a disciplined, deliberate strategy that allows the mind to engage fully with the task at hand. The ability to focus is a muscle, and every distraction weakens it. This chapter explores how to remove distractions effectively, build unbroken attention spans, and create an environment where deep work becomes natural, inevitable, and deeply satisfying. The first step is awareness. Before anything can be removed, the sources of distraction must be identified. Distractions are not always obvious. They can be loud, like social media notifications, or subtle, like the constant checking of email or even an idle habit of opening unnecessary tabs. The mind is naturally drawn to novelty and interruption, so it is crucial to catalog the triggers that pull attention away. Keep a log for a few days, noting every time focus is broken. Be specific. Note what the distraction was, the time, and what you were doing before it happened. Awareness alone transforms behavior because it exposes patterns previously unnoticed. Once the sources are visible, eliminate what can be removed completely. Devices are the most common culprits. Phones, for example, are designed to hijack attention. Place them in another room during work periods. Use airplane mode, or invest in apps that block notifications. These are not tools of limitation, but tools of liberation. The fewer interruptions that reach the brain, the more energy is available for sustained work. Remove physical clutter as well. A cluttered workspace invites wandering thoughts. Each unnecessary object is a potential diversion. Keep only what is essential on the desk: the project materials, a notebook, a pen, and nothing else. The environment should whisper work rather than shout distraction. Digital distractions extend beyond devices. Email, messaging apps, and social media are designed to be addictive. The first strategy is batching. Instead of checking messages throughout the day, define 2 or 3 windows to respond to communication. During deep work, these platforms should be closed entirely. The mind craves feedback, but each interruption breaks focus and requires additional energy to rebuild. Batching concentrates necessary interactions into controlled periods, freeing long stretches of time for immersion. Visual and auditory stimuli also compete for attention. Even small noises, such as notifications or the hum of a nearby device, fragment thought. Headphones can act as a boundary between focus and disruption, even if no music is played. Noise-canceling headphones create a bubble in which the mind can operate without interruption. Some people benefit from low-level background sound, like white noise or instrumental music, which masks disruptive sounds and provides a rhythm that can anchor attention. The choice of sound should support sustained attention, not invite distraction. Another powerful method is to use time as a shield. Set defined work blocks with clear start and end times. During these blocks, the sole goal is uninterrupted engagement. Communicate this commitment to others if needed. A simple sign or status update indicating "Do Not Disturb" can prevent accidental intrusions. When the brain knows the period is protected, it begins to settle into sustained focus without the constant threat of interruption. This kind of temporal boundary creates predictability, and the mind thrives on predictable structures for deep work. Internal distractions are equally insidious. Wandering thoughts, self-doubt, or the temptation to multitask can fragment attention faster than external triggers. Training the mind to return to the task is essential. Each time the mind drifts, note the distraction and gently refocus without judgment. This practice strengthens attention resilience. A short mental reset, a deep breath or brief stretch can anchor the mind back to work without adding stress. The key is to treat internal interruptions like small waves rather than storms, acknowledging them but refusing to let them take over. Creating clear goals for each work session reduces the lure of distraction. Vague intentions invite wandering attention. Define exactly what success looks like in the session, even if it is only one task. When the objective is clear, the mind knows precisely what to attend to and is less likely to seek novelty elsewhere. Break large projects into small, manageable chunks. Completing these chunks provides immediate feedback, reinforces focus, and diminishes the temptation to escape into low-value activities. Visual cues reinforce the focus mindset. Arrange the workspace so that only the current task is visible. Physical folders, notebooks, or digital windows should be limited to the task at hand. If a task requires reading, have only the reading materials in view. If writing, open only the document in progress. The fewer competing signals, the less chance the mind will wander. Attention is drawn to the most salient visual cue, so make the work itself the most prominent object in the environment. Energy management is a crucial component. Fatigue lowers resistance to distraction. Schedule the most demanding tasks during peak energy periods. Recognize personal rhythms. Some people focus best in the morning, others late at night. Protect these hours for deep work and reserve lower energy periods for routine or administrative tasks. Distraction often masquerades as a desire for relief. By aligning tasks with energy levels, the mind is less likely to seek shortcuts. Micro-habits support long-term focus. Simple practices, repeated consistently, create a foundation for sustained attention. Start each work session with a ritual. Clear the desk, pour a cup of water, stretch, or review a short task list. These small actions signal the brain that it is time for undistracted work. Over time, the ritual itself triggers focus automatically, reducing resistance at the start of every session. Technology can also be repurposed to reduce distractions. Apps that block websites, silence notifications, or track screen time are not limitations, but enablers of discipline. Automate focus whenever possible. Schedule software to activate blocking modes during work sessions. Set timers to mark the start and end of concentrated periods, and use reminders to maintain environmental control. Automation takes human error out of the equation, allowing the mind to concentrate fully. The final layer is psychological clarity. Often, distraction arises from unprocessed mental clutter, tasks, worries, or ideas floating unresolved. Use a simple note-taking system to capture thoughts that intrude during work. Writing them down acknowledges the idea without permitting it to hijack attention. This practice reduces anxiety about forgetting and keeps the mind anchored to the present task. Building the capacity for deep focus is a daily discipline. It requires awareness, environmental control, time management, and mental training. Distractions are not eliminated by willpower alone. They are systematically removed through thoughtful design. Each adjustment, a cleared desk, a muted phone, a focused work block, compounds over time. The result is a state in which work demands attention naturally, and the mind settles into a productive rhythm. Actionable steps for immediate application include auditing every distraction source, clearing the workspace of non-essential items, setting a clear work block, batching communication, establishing sensory boundaries, using micro-rituals to start work, capturing intrusive thoughts, aligning tasks with energy peaks, and deploying technology to automate focus. Start with the smallest, most controllable distractions first, and build toward complete environmental mastery. The process is cumulative, and consistency is more important than initial perfection. When distractions are removed, work gains a sense of gravity. Tasks that once seemed tedious become absorbing. The mind experiences clarity and momentum that cannot exist in a fragmented environment. The obsessive attention once thought impossible becomes not only possible but natural. By systematically eliminating distraction, focus transforms from a fleeting state into a permanent tool for creating meaningful work. Over time, the ability to concentrate deeply becomes a defining strength, a reservoir of power that shapes both productivity and character. Distraction-free work is not about rigidity or deprivation. It is about giving the mind the conditions it needs to thrive. Each deliberate adjustment creates space for flow, learning, and mastery. By removing what pulls attention away, the brain can finally settle into the work itself, unencumbered and fully present. The discipline to manage distractions is the cornerstone of obsession with the work. Number 3. Track daily effort, not outcomes. The human mind is naturally drawn to results. Achievements, recognition, and tangible outcomes dominate our attention because they feel measurable and satisfying. Yet, obsession with results alone is a trap. Outcomes are often influenced by factors beyond control: timing, luck, other people's decisions, or circumstances that shift unexpectedly. When effort is ignored in favor of results, motivation becomes unstable. Tracking effort rather than outcomes creates a foundation of consistency, discipline, and resilience. This approach allows focus on what can actually be controlled, turning daily practice into a reliable path toward mastery, growth, and long-term success. Effort tracking begins with defining what constitutes meaningful work. Outcomes are visible, but effort is intangible unless it is deliberately recorded. Identify the key actions that move a project forward. These are not vague intentions like work harder, but precise, observable activities: writing 500 words, coding a function, reviewing 5 case studies, practicing a musical scale for 30 minutes. Every action should be specific enough that it can be measured consistently each day. The clarity of what counts as effort allows for honest tracking and removes ambiguity that often sabotages discipline. Create a tangible system for recording effort. Physical journals, habit trackers, or simple digital logs are effective. Each session of focused work is noted, including duration, intensity, and tasks completed. For example, rather than writing "worked on project," log wrote 3 pages of draft for chapter 2 in 45 minutes. Details matter because they provide a concrete record of effort that can be evaluated over time. This record is not a performance scoreboard, but a mirror that reflects how consistently energy is being applied toward meaningful action. Establish a daily ritual to log effort. Consistency in recording reinforces the habit itself and embeds reflection into the process. Choose a fixed time before ending a work session or at the close of the day to review the day's work. Ask simple questions: what did I commit to today? Did I follow through? Did I maintain intensity and focus? Did I avoid distractions? Answering these questions anchors awareness and provides data for refinement. Over weeks, this reflection builds a factual record of persistent action, independent of external validation. Effort tracking also changes the internal reward system. When attention shifts from outcome to effort, each completed action becomes a source of satisfaction. The small, consistent victories of showing up, applying energy, and maintaining focus begin to accumulate. Progress feels immediate because it is tied to controllable input rather than uncertain results. This cultivates intrinsic motivation, which is far more reliable than external recognition. Each action reinforces identity. The person who works diligently becomes the person capable of achieving long-term results. Link effort to progress markers. While outcomes are unpredictable, certain outputs are directly linked to effort. These outputs serve as proxies for development without the emotional volatility of waiting for final results. For example, in writing, word count, research completed, and edits done are reflections of applied effort. In skill acquisition, the hours of practice, repetitions completed, or mistakes analyzed are reliable indicators of effort. Tracking these metrics makes progress visible in real time, providing both accountability and encouragement. Visual representation strengthens the impact of effort tracking. A simple chart or calendar with daily marks showing work completed creates a psychological cue. Streaks encourage continuation, gaps highlight where attention slipped. Humans are wired to respond to patterns and consistency. Observing a visual record of effort provides a clear incentive to maintain the streak. It shifts focus from comparing results with others to comparing oneself with one's own record of persistence. The external validation of outcomes becomes secondary to the internal validation of disciplined effort. Effort tracking requires separating action from emotion. Frustration often arises when outcomes fail to match expectations. Instead of interpreting lack of results as failure, view effort as neutral input that fuels long-term growth. This mindset is critical because it protects confidence and prevents emotional burnout. Every hour invested is an investment in skill, understanding, and momentum, even if immediate outcomes are not visible. Consistently recording effort reinforces this perspective, making effort the reliable measure of progress rather than unpredictable results. Incorporate feedback loops to refine efficiency. Tracking effort is not only about quantity, but also about quality. Review what actions produce the most meaningful progress and adjust daily practice accordingly. For instance, 2 hours spent distractedly is not equivalent to 2 focused hours. Effort logs reveal patterns, time of day when focus is highest, methods that produce tangible outputs, and techniques that maintain engagement. Use these insights to optimize routines and maximize the impact of each effort session. The record of effort becomes a guide, not merely a record, informing smarter work choices. Combine effort tracking with goal structuring. Even when outcomes are distant or uncertain, effort becomes a predictor of eventual achievement. Break larger objectives into micro goals defined by action. For example, instead of publish a book, define effort-based goals. Research one topic, write 500 words, revise one section. Each micro goal is measurable through effort. Daily logging ensures that even on days when results seem absent, progress in the form of applied energy is evident. Momentum builds quietly, beyond the immediate visibility of final outcomes. Accountability enhances the effect of effort tracking. Share progress with a trusted mentor, partner, or peer group, not for praise, but to maintain adherence to the process. External observation reinforces internal discipline. By documenting effort, the record speaks louder than memory or excuses. When daily work is visible in some form to another party, it strengthens commitment and reduces the likelihood of neglecting the practice. Accountability channels energy into consistent action rather than sporadic bursts, motivated by results alone. Effort tracking also reframes failure. When effort is the metric, failure becomes an opportunity to analyze whether energy was applied effectively. Identify whether sessions lacked focus, whether distractions interfered, or whether techniques need adjustment. Each gap in effort tracking is data, not judgment. The focus is on improvement and learning rather than on self-criticism based on fluctuating outcomes. This creates resilience and persistence, traits that are indispensable for long-term success. Daily effort tracking cultivates mindfulness. By observing the actions taken each day, the practitioner becomes aware of patterns, tendencies, and habits that previously went unnoticed. Mindfulness enhances the quality of effort because attention is directed intentionally rather than wandering unconsciously. This awareness also allows the refinement of routines, timing, and strategy. When applied consistently, tracking effort trains the mind to value presence and applied energy over the anxiety of uncertain results. Actionable steps include: define precise daily actions, create a physical or digital log for recording effort, establish a ritual for reviewing the day's actions, visualize progress using charts or streaks, break long-term goals into effort-based micro-goals, analyze patterns to refine strategies, and maintain accountability through sharing with a mentor or partner. Start small, focusing on 1 or 2 high-priority actions, and expand tracking gradually to encompass all critical tasks. This creates sustainable consistency without overwhelming attention or willpower. Tracking effort rather than outcomes transforms the relationship with work. The individual is no longer a passive observer of external forces, but an active participant in controlled, deliberate action. Daily commitment to applying energy, recording progress, and reflecting on patterns builds mastery, resilience, and confidence. Obsession with work emerges naturally from repeated investment of effort, independent of results, because action itself becomes the measure of value. Over time, the cumulative record of effort forms the backbone of achievement, ensuring that when outcomes finally manifest, they reflect a history of disciplined action, not luck or circumstance. Number 4. Create challenges that push consistency. Consistency is the backbone of skill, mastery, and meaningful achievement. Yet, without deliberate challenge, consistency is fragile. Repeating the same tasks without variation or difficulty risks stagnation. Growth requires that each day's work stretches the limits of endurance, attention, or creativity just enough to make persistence meaningful. Creating challenges that push consistency is not about arbitrary hardship. It is about constructing a structured environment where repeated action is inevitable, engagement is high, and the mind develops resilience through controlled pressure. This practice transforms work from a chore into a disciplined pursuit that becomes central to identity and capability. The first step in creating these challenges is understanding the threshold of your current consistency. Begin by observing your current habits, how often you start projects, how long you remain focused, and how easily attention slips. Identify moments when effort wanes or routines are neglected. These observations reveal the weak points where consistency is most likely to fail. Only by knowing where habits are fragile can challenges be designed to strengthen them rather than overwhelm them. The goal is gradual intensification, not reckless strength. Once the starting point is clear, introduce incremental challenges. These are small, deliberate increases in difficulty or complexity that test your ability to maintain effort day after day. For example, if writing has become routine at 500 words per day, raise the target to 600 or introduce a time limit. If practice sessions last 30 minutes, extend them to 45 minutes while maintaining focus. The challenge must be realistic enough to complete but difficult enough to require attention and discipline. This balance ensures that persistence is tested without creating discouragement or burnout. Challenges work best when measurable. Define specific criteria for success that can be observed and recorded. Ambiguity undermines consistency because the mind is left guessing whether the effort is sufficient. Measurement transforms abstract commitment into concrete action. For instance, rather than saying practice piano more, specify play 3 pieces perfectly for 30 minutes. Recording these challenges and outcomes reinforces accountability to oneself. It is not about perfection, but about showing up consistently under progressively higher demand. Designing challenges should also include variation to maintain engagement. Monotony erodes consistency over time because the mind craves novelty. Variation might be in content, intensity, environment, or method. In writing, this could mean experimenting with a new style, tackling a different subject, or writing in a new location. In physical training, it could be adjusting intensity, trying different exercises, or modifying duration. These controlled variations prevent boredom while maintaining the core habit, ensuring that repetition does not become stagnation. Pair challenges with routine. A challenge without structure is likely to falter, while routine without challenge becomes mechanical and uninspiring. Embed the new difficulty within established rituals. If mornings are reserved for focused work, add the new challenge as part of the session rather than as an ad hoc addition. This preserves momentum and reduces the mental friction of starting. Over time, the combination of structure and challenge strengthens both the habit and the capacity to endure increasing difficulty. Use accountability to reinforce challenge-based consistency. Public or peer accountability amplifies commitment because human beings naturally resist social disapproval or the perception of underperformance. Sharing specific goals and challenges with a trusted partner, mentor, or group ensures that there is a visible standard. Knowing that someone else is aware of the target creates an additional layer of pressure to maintain consistency. This pressure is not punitive. It functions as reinforcement, strengthening the connection between effort and identity. Incorporate rewards that support the challenge rather than undermine it. Immediate gratification from distractions can sabotage consistency. Instead, create small, meaningful incentives tied directly to completion of the challenge. These can be intrinsic, such as a sense of accomplishment, reflection on growth, or observation of progress over time. Extrinsic rewards like a short break, a walk, or a small treat can reinforce behavior when applied selectively. The purpose is to make the completion of the challenge satisfying, without becoming dependent on external validation. Track performance over time. A challenge is most effective when it can be observed, analyzed, and refined. Maintain a log that records effort, completion, difficulty, and any obstacles encountered. Review the log regularly to understand patterns. What times of day produce the highest success rate? Which challenges are easiest or hardest? And where consistency falters. This feedback loop transforms raw effort into intelligent practice, ensuring that each challenge is not arbitrary but contributes directly to growth and sustained engagement. Anticipate resistance and plan for it. Challenges inherently invite moments of doubt, fatigue, or avoidance. Instead of succumbing, pre-plan strategies for these predictable moments. This might include micro-rests, breaking the challenge into smaller, more manageable parts, or using brief rituals to reignite focus. Awareness of potential resistance transforms it from an obstacle into a test of discipline, reinforcing the very consistency that the challenge is designed to strengthen. Preparing for friction reduces its disruptive impact and builds mental resilience. Challenges also require reflection. After completing a session, pause to assess what worked, what required extra effort, and how the challenge affected focus or persistence. Documenting these insights allows continuous improvement. Reflection transforms repetition into intentional practice, turning simple effort into skill development. Each challenge, when paired with reflection, is a step toward mastery because it combines action, evaluation, and adjustment. The discipline learned through repeated reflection strengthens the ability to maintain consistency even under increasing pressure. Gradually escalate the challenge over time. Consistency is reinforced by manageable pressure that grows slowly. Sudden, extreme difficulty can break habits and discourage engagement. Incremental escalation ensures that persistence is always tested within the bounds of achievable growth. Small, repeated increments build confidence, skill, and endurance. The accumulation of these challenges over weeks and months develops the mental toughness necessary to sustain effort even when circumstances are adverse. Effort and challenge must align with personal values and goals. Challenges that feel meaningless or disconnected from purpose are less likely to be maintained. Choose challenges that directly advance important work or personal development. When the challenge resonates with identity and long-term objectives, persistence becomes easier. Effort feels purposeful rather than burdensome, and each completed challenge reinforces self-image as someone capable of disciplined, sustained action. Actionable steps include identifying weak points in current routines, selecting one measurable challenge to apply consistently, embedding it in an existing ritual, defining clear criteria for success, tracking effort daily, anticipating resistance, reflecting after each session, and incrementally increasing difficulty over time. These steps ensure that each day's work stretches limits, reinforces persistence, and develops resilience. Consistency becomes a product, not of blind repetition, but of intentional, disciplined engagement with difficulty. Creating challenges that push consistency strengthens the mind, sharpens discipline, and transforms work into a deliberate, engaged practice. Obsession with effort emerges naturally when the brain experiences the satisfaction of overcoming incremental difficulties, and the identity of a consistent, capable individual solidifies through repeated demonstration. Each challenge conquered is proof of endurance, mastery, and focus, and over time, the cumulative effect of these challenges forms the foundation of skill achievement and the kind of deep engagement that turns work into a source of personal power. Number 5. Celebrate small steps every day. Progress is often measured by grand outcomes, a completed project, a promotion, or a final product that carries visible results. Yet, focusing exclusively on monumental achievements ignores the quiet victories that sustain motivation and reinforce discipline. Celebrating small steps every day is not about artificial self-congratulation. It is about recognizing the effort, attention, and persistence that make long-term success possible. These small steps are the building blocks of mastery, the bricks that form the foundation of consistent work, and the signals that the brain uses to stay motivated and engaged. Learning to acknowledge and celebrate them transforms the way work feels and strengthens the habit of obsession with effort itself. The first step is awareness of what constitutes a small step. These steps are discrete, tangible actions that move a project or skill forward, even if they do not immediately produce results. They might be completing a single paragraph of writing, reviewing one section of notes, coding a function, or practicing a specific technique. Each small step is a fraction of the larger goal, but each carries value because it is a deliberate, conscious action that moves effort forward. Awareness ensures that these steps are noticed rather than lost in the rush toward results. Creating a system to acknowledge these steps enhances their significance. This can be as simple as a journal entry, a checklist, or a progress board. At the end of each work session, note what was accomplished, no matter how minor it may seem. Documenting these small wins externalizes the effort, making the invisible visible. This record acts as proof of persistence and provides tangible evidence that progress is being made, even when outcomes are distant or uncertain. Celebration can be sensory and immediate. Recognize the completion of each step through small actions, a moment of pause, a deep breath, a smile, or a fist pump. These physical responses reinforce the psychological reward of effort. The brain associates action with positive feedback, strengthening motivation. Over time, this conditioning reduces the need for external validation and makes the act of working itself intrinsically rewarding. Small step recognition also prevents discouragement. Large goals often feel overwhelming and distant, creating anxiety or procrastination. By breaking tasks into small, manageable actions and celebrating their completion, the perception of work changes. Each day carries a series of attainable victories that build momentum and confidence. Progress becomes visible in increments rather than remaining an abstract promise, and persistence is reinforced. Link celebration to reflection. After acknowledging a small step, consider what was learned, what was challenging, and how the action contributes to the broader objective. This reflection converts simple accomplishment into insight. Understanding the value of the small action reinforces the purpose of continued effort and strengthens cognitive engagement with the work. Celebrating in combination with reflection makes each step meaningful rather than trivial. Incorporate habit-based triggers for celebration. Pair small wins with consistent rituals to reinforce recognition. For example, after completing a task, mark it with a check on a calendar, highlight it in a notebook, or send a brief message of accountability to a trusted peer. These triggers make acknowledgement automatic, reducing the chance that achievements go unnoticed. Habitual recognition strengthens the neural pathways connecting effort to reward, making consistent action easier to sustain. The emotional impact of celebrating small steps is profound. Positive reinforcement releases dopamine, which motivates repeated behavior. Unlike delayed gratification tied to final outcomes, small step celebration provides immediate feedback that the brain can respond to. Each acknowledgement is a mini reward, reinforcing the value of discipline and presence in work. Emotional reinforcement is as important as cognitive reinforcement, ensuring that motivation remains high even during challenging phases of effort. Balance celebration with humility. Recognition is not about ego or self-aggrandizement. It is about reinforcing patterns of effort and persistence. Avoid framing small wins as final achievements. Instead, see them as markers along a continuum of growth. This perspective maintains focus on long-term objectives, while providing the mental and emotional fuel to continue progressing. Celebration should energize, not inflate, the sense of accomplishment. Link celebrations to consistency. The act of pausing and acknowledging effort daily creates a rhythm that reinforces persistence. Over time, this rhythm conditions the mind to recognize value in repeated, disciplined action, rather than sporadic bursts of work. Consistency becomes self-reinforcing because each small step is both an action and a signal of progress. A day without a recognized step stands out, prompting reflection and course correction. Scaling small step celebration encourages the recognition of cumulative impact. Individual actions may seem minor, but when repeated across days, weeks, and months, their effect compounds. Tracking these increments visually, through streaks, charts, or logs, demonstrates the growing weight of disciplined action. This perspective reduces anxiety over immediate results because it frames progress as a steady accumulation rather than a singular event. Celebrate effort, not only completion. Effortful attempts that push boundaries, even if imperfect, deserve recognition. Experimentation, risk-taking, and the persistence to continue despite difficulty are as valuable as successfully executed tasks. By acknowledging these actions, the mind is conditioned to value courage and discipline, creating an internal culture of perseverance. Effort recognition transforms mistakes from discouragement into actionable learning and growth. Encourage micro-celebrations within challenging work blocks. For example, after completing a demanding segment of writing, problem-solving, or practice, take a brief pause to acknowledge the effort. Stand, stretch, take a sip of water, or jot a quick note of progress. These micro-celebrations punctuate work with reinforcements, sustaining energy and engagement over longer periods. They prevent burnout while emphasizing the significance of persistent attention to detail. Incorporate social reinforcements selectively. Sharing small wins with mentors, peers, or accountability partners can amplify the psychological benefit without creating dependency. Social acknowledgement provides external reinforcement that complements internal recognition. The key is to use this selectively, maintain primary focus on personal validation of effort, rather than seeking approval from others. Balance ensures that motivation remains intrinsic, rather than contingent on external factors. Reflect on the connection between small steps and long-term vision. Each minor accomplishment, when viewed in isolation, may appear inconsequential, yet collectively they form the foundation of significant achievements. Recognizing this connection provides perspective, reduces impatience, and fosters gratitude for disciplined persistence. Small step celebration bridges the gap between daily action and long-term objectives, reinforcing both focus and motivation. Actionable steps include: identify one tangible task per day to complete. Pause immediately after completion to acknowledge the action. Document it in a journal or tracker. Reflect briefly on learning or progress. Incorporate a sensory or habitual trigger for recognition, and review accumulated small wins weekly to observe cumulative growth. These practices embed acknowledgement into the rhythm of work, reinforcing consistent effort and psychological engagement. Daily recognition of small steps transforms perception of work from a distant, outcome-oriented burden into an immediate, rewarding process. Obsession with effort emerges naturally as the brain experiences repeated reinforcement of persistence, progress, and discipline. The habit of celebrating small victories cultivates resilience, focus, and satisfaction, providing emotional and cognitive fuel that supports long-term mastery. Through this practice, the act of working becomes both meaningful and motivating, ensuring that attention, effort, and engagement remain sustained over time. Number 6. Make progress the main reward. Progress is the quiet engine that drives sustained effort. When attention is focused on immediate results, motivation is constantly at the mercy of circumstance, timing, and external validation. Outcomes fluctuate, delays occur, and unforeseen obstacles disrupt plans. Relying on results as the primary source of reward creates instability and frustration. Shifting the focus so that progress itself becomes the reward stabilizes motivation, strengthens discipline, and nurtures an enduring obsession with the work. Progress is tangible, measurable, and within direct control, making it the most reliable source of satisfaction in any endeavor. Begin by defining what constitutes meaningful progress. Progress is not necessarily the final outcome or completion of a goal, but the measurable steps that advance understanding, skill, or project development. These might include completing a chapter of writing, mastering a specific technique, refining a process, or solving a discrete problem. By clearly identifying the incremental actions that signify advancement, work transforms from an ambiguous task into a series of achievable, tangible efforts. Progress provides feedback that is immediate and visible, allowing the mind to recognize forward motion even when the end goal remains distant. Measurement is essential. Progress must be recorded in a way that allows observation over time. Tracking systems, journals, or digital logs can capture hours invested, tasks completed, milestones reached, and learning acquired. Visual representations of progress, such as charts, checkmarks, or streaks, reinforce the psychological sense of movement. Each logged increment demonstrates the cumulative effect of effort, creating the perception that even small actions contribute to a larger trajectory. When progress is visible, motivation is reinforced continuously. Break larger goals into smaller components. Long-term objectives often feel overwhelming because the distance between starting and finishing is too great to be perceived clearly. By focusing on smaller, incremental achievements, the sense of accomplishment becomes immediate. Each small step completed is proof of movement and provides a reward that is intrinsic rather than external. This approach reduces procrastination, increases focus, and converts abstract ambitions into a series of actionable items that deliver constant feedback. Anchor progress to effort. Effort is the foundation upon which progress is built. By observing the connection between consistent action and incremental forward motion, the brain learns to associate work itself with reward. Instead of waiting for outcomes that are uncertain or delayed, each committed effort session becomes intrinsically valuable because it produces observable advancement. This creates a virtuous cycle. Effort generates progress. Progress reinforces effort, and continued effort accumulates into mastery. Create rituals that highlight progress. Begin each session by reviewing what has been accomplished in previous work periods. Seeing tangible improvement fosters a sense of continuity and reinforces the significance of ongoing effort. Conclude sessions with a brief reflection on the advancement achieved during that block of time. Noticing even minor shifts in understanding, skill, or output converts routine action into meaningful growth. Ritualizing recognition of progress ensures that reward is embedded in the process, rather than waiting for external validation. Progress as a reward also involves mental reframing. Train the mind to see movement forward as the true goal, rather than waiting for a final product to provide satisfaction. This reframing transforms work from an anxiety-inducing activity dependent on outcomes into a process of continual accomplishment. The brain begins to expect and derive reward from incremental improvement, creating a stable source of motivation that is independent of external factors. Use quantifiable markers to reinforce progress. Identify indicators that can be observed and measured daily or weekly. For example, in creative work, word count, revisions completed, or sections drafted can act as markers. In skill development, the number of repetitions, exercises, or challenges completed provides a clear metric. These markers serve as checkpoints that make progress tangible, reinforcing the reward system each time an increment is completed. Tracking and celebrating these markers keeps attention focused on consistent action rather than fluctuating outcomes. Combine progress tracking with visual reinforcement. Charts, graphs, or simple trackers offer immediate, clear evidence of movement. Observing a streak of completed actions or incremental gains reinforces persistence. Visual evidence of progress creates a psychological anchor, allowing the mind to focus on momentum rather than results. The perception of steady growth increases resilience, reduces frustration, and strengthens the intrinsic motivation to continue. Reflection amplifies the sense of reward. Regularly reviewing work sessions to note what has been accomplished strengthens the recognition of advancement. Reflection is not about judgment or perfection. It is about appreciating the forward motion of effort. Even when obstacles arise or results lag, reviewing documented progress provides reassurance that work is meaningful. Reflection enhances awareness of growth patterns and informs strategic adjustments for more efficient action, creating both motivation and insight simultaneously. Progress-centered reward also reduces the emotional volatility associated with setbacks. When outcomes are unpredictable, failure or delay can undermine confidence and halt momentum. By valuing incremental advancement, each effort becomes meaningful regardless of external circumstances. The perception of movement, even in small amounts, sustains morale and encourages persistence. Setbacks are reframed not as failure but as deviations that do not negate the forward motion that has already been achieved. Incorporate social reinforcement strategically. Sharing documented progress with mentors, peers, or accountability partners can reinforce the intrinsic value of incremental advancement. The external acknowledgement complements personal recognition, providing additional motivation without creating dependency on external validation. Social reinforcement amplifies the reward of progress while maintaining the focus on effort and forward motion rather than final outcomes. Adapt challenges to emphasize progress. Design tasks and goals that produce observable advancement and can be measured consistently. Incremental improvements should stretch capability without creating overwhelm. These challenges maintain engagement, develop resilience, and strengthen discipline. By aligning difficulty with achievable advancement, progress remains the main reward, ensuring motivation is sustained even under demanding circumstances. Actionable steps for embedding progress as the reward include defining clear indicators of forward movement, tracking these markers daily, breaking long-term goals into measurable increments, conducting brief reflections after work sessions, visualizing cumulative gains, linking effort directly to observed advancement, and sharing progress selectively with accountability partners. Each step reinforces the intrinsic value of movement, ensuring that work itself is inherently rewarding. Making progress the main reward transforms the way work is approached. Obsession shifts from external validation and uncertain outcomes to the visible, controllable evidence of forward motion. Each small advancement reinforces effort, strengthens resilience, and sustains motivation. Over time, the accumulation of incremental progress builds mastery, confidence, and discipline. The process of observing and valuing progress itself becomes deeply satisfying, ensuring that focus, effort, and engagement are maintained consistently. This perspective creates a self-sustaining loop. Action produces progress, progress provides reward, and reward motivates further action. By embedding reward in the act of moving forward, work becomes inherently valuable. The mind learns to derive satisfaction from the process, reducing dependence on external results or approval. Mastery and achievement emerge naturally from the accumulation of deliberate effort, and the obsession with work itself is fueled by the constant experience of progress. Number 7. Design systems that guide behavior. Behavior is rarely sustained by willpower alone. Motivation fluctuates, energy ebbs, and obstacles appear without warning. Reliance on raw determination is unstable. It can carry action only so far, before fatigue or distraction undermines effort. Systems, on the other hand, are design structures that guide behavior automatically. They provide a framework in which consistent action is inevitable, removing the need to debate whether to start, continue, or push through. Designing systems that guide behavior transforms work from a series of decisions into a seamless flow of disciplined action, making obsession with the work both reliable and sustainable. The first principle of effective systems is clarity. A system must clearly define the actions, triggers, and sequence of behaviors it is meant to produce. Vague intentions do not qualify as systems. They leave too much room for hesitation or indecision. Specify the inputs, the process, and the desired outputs. For example, rather than committing to write more, a functional system would define: open the document at 7 a.m., write 500 words, save progress, review notes, then close the file. Every step is explicit, leaving no room for uncertainty or procrastination. Clear structures reduce mental friction and conserve energy for the work itself. Environment shapes behavior more than motivation ever can. Effective systems leverage surroundings to automatically encourage desired actions. Arrange the workspace to minimize distractions and highlight cues that trigger productive behavior. Items required for work should be immediately accessible, while distractions are removed or obscured. Even subtle visual or sensory cues can direct attention. A single notebook, an open computer with the correct project loaded, or headphones positioned as a signal for focus. The environment becomes a silent coach, steering behavior without conscious intervention. Timing is a critical component of behavioral systems. Actions embedded into predictable schedules are more likely to occur consistently. Define precise windows for specific activities, aligning them with natural energy cycles. Peak cognitive hours should be reserved for demanding tasks, while lower energy periods can accommodate administrative or routine work. Scheduling reduces decision fatigue, eliminating the question of whether to act. The predictability of timing ensures that behavior becomes habitual, supported by routine rather than contingent on fleeting motivation. Automated triggers are another essential element. A system should include cues that initiate behavior automatically. These can be sensory, temporal, or contextual signals. For instance, placing a water bottle next to a workout space signals hydration and readiness for physical activity, while a specific notification can mark the start of a focused session. Repetition solidifies these cues, creating a chain of behavior that the brain follows almost reflexively. Automation reduces reliance on self-discipline and channels energy directly into productive action. Feedback loops reinforce systems. Systems are effective only when behavior is monitored and adjusted. Tracking performance, logging actions, and reviewing results create a continuous feedback mechanism. Observing trends allows for fine-tuning of routines, highlighting inefficiencies, or reinforcing methods that consistently produce progress. Feedback ensures that the system evolves alongside changing circumstances or goals, maintaining alignment between action and objective. Without feedback, a system risks stagnation or misalignment, producing routine without meaningful advancement. Simplicity strengthens systems. A system overloaded with rules or complexity becomes difficult to follow, increasing the likelihood of breakdown. Focus on essential actions that directly contribute to progress. The fewer the steps required to initiate and sustain behavior, the more likely the system will function reliably. Complex procedures may feel comprehensive, but they introduce friction and decision points that undermine consistent execution. Elegantly simple systems leverage minimal effort for maximal output. Redundancy in systems creates resilience. Anticipate potential points of failure and embed safeguards. For example, if a digital tracker fails, maintain a physical log as a backup. If a workspace becomes temporarily unavailable, have a portable setup ready. By planning for interruptions, the system ensures continuity of behavior. Redundancy is not wasteful. It is a deliberate buffer that preserves consistency in the face of inevitable disruptions. Behavioral systems should integrate identity alignment. The actions prescribed by the system must resonate with personal values and long-term objectives. When behaviors reinforce self-concept, I am someone who writes daily, or I am someone who practices discipline consistently, motivation is strengthened. Systems that reflect identity reduce internal conflict, as the person naturally wants to uphold the standards set by the system. Alignment between action and identity transforms routine behavior into a reflection of self, reinforcing both consistency and personal growth. Incorporate incremental progression into systems. A static system eventually loses effectiveness as the mind adapts. Embed challenges, escalating complexity, or variation in a controlled manner to maintain engagement and encourage growth. This might include gradually increasing task duration, complexity, or intensity. Systems are not just about automation. They are scaffolds that support continuous improvement. Incremental escalation ensures that the behavior guided by the system remains productive, challenging, and rewarding. Ritualization strengthens the psychological impact of systems. Begin and end sessions with defined actions that signal entry and exit from work. This could be a 5-minute review, organizing materials, or a brief meditation to center attention. Rituals create a mental boundary, enhancing focus during the session and providing closure afterward. They integrate seamlessly into the system, marking transitions in a way that reinforces consistent engagement without relying on conscious decision-making. Accountability mechanisms amplify system effectiveness. Sharing system adherence with mentors, peers, or accountability partners introduces external reinforcement. The visibility of compliance increases motivation to maintain the structure, particularly when challenges arise. Accountability need not be punitive. It functions as an added layer of support for consistent behavior, strengthening the system's reliability while ensuring that progress remains visible and verifiable. Adaptation is critical to long-term system success. Circumstances change, priorities shift, and energy levels fluctuate. Systems must be flexible enough to accommodate these changes while preserving core behavioral patterns. Regular review allows identification of elements that no longer serve purpose or require adjustment. A system that evolves alongside the individual ensures continuous alignment between behavior and objectives, maintaining both efficiency and relevance. Actionable steps to build an effective behavioral system include identifying core actions, structuring the environment to support these actions, defining clear triggers and timing, integrating feedback loops, simplifying procedures, embedding redundancy, aligning behavior with identity, incorporating incremental challenges, establishing entry and exit rituals, and maintaining accountability. Execute these steps deliberately and consistently, reviewing and refining the system as needed to sustain high levels of engagement and effort over time. Systems guide behavior by shifting responsibility from moment-to-moment decisions to pre-designed structures. This reduces mental friction, preserves energy, and transforms work into a predictable, disciplined flow. Obsession with effort emerges naturally when the environment, cues, timing, and feedback are designed to support sustained action. Over time, well-designed systems cultivate mastery, resilience, and consistency, creating conditions in which focus, progress, and discipline are inevitable. The work becomes seamless because the system directs behavior, allowing the mind to dedicate energy to creativity, problem-solving, and improvement rather than debate and hesitation. Number 8. Train mind to enjoy process. Most people approach work with a mindset fixated on results. The mind measures success by outcomes, approval, or tangible achievements. When results are delayed, unclear, or uncertain, motivation falters, energy drains, and even tasks that were once enjoyable become burdensome. Training the mind to enjoy the process shifts attention from distant outcomes to the present action. It transforms effort into a source of satisfaction, makes persistence natural, and nurtures a sustainable obsession with work. Mastery of this mental shift is as essential as the skills or strategies applied to the work itself. The first step is awareness of the mind's natural tendency to chase rewards outside the present moment. When performing a task, notice how often attention drifts to what will happen after completion. These mental excursions diminish focus, reduce satisfaction, and create anxiety. By observing these tendencies without judgment, it becomes possible to consciously redirect attention to the immediate experience. Awareness alone begins the process of retraining perception, allowing the act of working to take precedence over distant results. Engage fully with the sensory and cognitive aspects of the task. Immersion begins with noticing details often overlooked: the feel of a pen, the rhythm of typing, the shapes of ideas forming in the mind. Active observation grounds attention in the moment. Treat each motion, decision, or thought as part of the work itself, rather than as a means to an end. By valuing the process on its own terms, the brain starts to derive satisfaction from execution rather than completion. Break work into micro-actions. Large abstract tasks can feel tedious when the mind fixates on the distant outcome. By subdividing work into smaller, manageable segments, the mind experiences repeated sensations of completion and engagement. Each micro-action offers an immediate sense of purpose and accomplishment, reinforcing the connection between effort and satisfaction. Over time, these small victories accumulate, making the overall process intrinsically rewarding. Incorporate curiosity as a driving force. Treat each step as an experiment. Observe outcomes, test techniques, and refine approaches. Curiosity shifts the focus from pressure and expectation to exploration and learning. When the mind perceives work as an opportunity to discover, the experience becomes enjoyable, and motivation is sustained. Curiosity engages the brain actively, transforming repetition into experimentation and repetitive effort into stimulating practice. Mindfulness practices support enjoyment of the process. Simple techniques, such as focusing on breathing, noticing posture, or being aware of environmental sounds, can anchor attention in the present. During work, periodically check in with the body and mind. Are you engaged? Is attention drifting? This self-observation cultivates a habit of presence, which is essential for finding satisfaction in the act of working itself. Mindfulness turns routine action into deliberate practice and reduces the mental noise that diminishes enjoyment. Reframe challenges as opportunities for engagement rather than obstacles. When difficulty arises, observe it as an essential component of the process. Resistance, frustration, or complexity can be signals that the mind is being exercised and the skill is growing. This perspective allows the mind to embrace effort rather than avoiding it. The process itself becomes inherently meaningful because overcoming challenges is part of the work, not a threat to be endured. Celebrate subtle progress within the process. Recognizing small shifts in understanding, skill, or performance enhances satisfaction. This is distinct from outcome-based celebration. It emphasizes growth within the action itself. Observing a smoother execution, a clearer thought, or a more efficient method strengthens the association between engagement and reward. Incremental improvement reinforces the intrinsic value of work and deepens the sense of fulfillment derived from the process. Adopt a rhythm to tasks that enhances engagement. Many forms of work benefit from repeated cycles of attention and rest. Structured intervals create natural peaks of focus and satisfaction. The brain begins to anticipate these cycles, increasing enjoyment and endurance. Flow emerges when the mind is sufficiently challenged and fully immersed. Developing a rhythm transforms labor into a patterned activity that the brain perceives as intrinsically rewarding, making persistence easier and more enjoyable. Detach self-worth from outcomes. When value is assigned solely to results, the mind struggles to enjoy effort. By consciously assigning worth to engagement, skill application, and persistence, motivation stabilizes. The sense of achievement shifts from external validation to internal satisfaction. This mindset allows the process itself to be the source of reward, fostering resilience and reducing anxiety over factors beyond control. Incorporate reflection to enhance process appreciation. After work sessions, pause to consider what was learned, how effort was applied, and the strategies that improved performance. This reflection highlights the value of the process itself, rather than merely the end result. Recognizing the intentionality and thought embedded in each actions strengthens the association between effort and reward, reinforcing the habit of enjoying work. Design the environment to support immersive engagement. Reduce distractions that pull attention away from the task, but also include elements that enhance sensory satisfaction. Proper lighting, comfortable seating, and organized tools contribute to ease and presence. Environmental cues act as subtle reinforcements, promoting focus and enjoyment of the work itself. The mind responds positively to spaces that facilitate uninterrupted, immersive effort. Link effort to personal growth rather than external achievement. Every action taken should be viewed as contributing to skill, knowledge, or discipline. When effort is meaningful on a personal level, the process becomes satisfying in itself. Progress and learning create immediate rewards, independent of external recognition, fostering a mindset in which engagement is valued above outcome. Actionable steps include dividing tasks into micro-actions, maintaining awareness of attention, practicing mindfulness, integrating curiosity, reframing challenges, observing subtle improvements, establishing rhythms, reflecting on effort, and creating a supportive environment. Start by noticing one aspect of the work to appreciate consciously each day, gradually expanding this awareness to the entire process. Over time, these practices train the mind to seek satisfaction in engagement rather than results, creating a sustainable, intrinsic motivation for consistent work. Training the mind to enjoy the process reshapes the way effort is experienced. Work becomes a source of immediate reward because attention is anchored in action, challenges are embraced, and progress is noticed in real time. Obsession with the work itself grows naturally, as each moment provides feedback, learning, and fulfillment. The act of working transforms from a means to an end into a deeply rewarding activity, ensuring consistent engagement, resilience, and enduring discipline over time. Number 9. Focus attention on present task. Concentration is the foundation of excellence. Without the ability to focus attention fully on the present task, effort dissipates, mistakes increase, and work stretches longer without meaningful progress. The mind, when scattered across multiple thoughts, worries about outcomes, or anticipates future steps, loses touch with the energy and precision necessary for mastery. Focusing on the present task transforms scattered effort into intentional action, creating momentum, satisfaction, and the discipline necessary to sustain obsession with work. Attention is a skill that must be deliberately trained, refined, and protected. Begin by recognizing the natural tendency to divide attention. The mind jumps between past events, future possibilities, and unrelated distractions. This tendency reduces efficiency and generates mental fatigue. Observation of this pattern is the first step. Notice when attention drifts and identify the triggers that lead to distraction. Awareness allows conscious redirection, a critical precursor to sustained focus. By catching the moment the mind wanders, it becomes possible to reclaim attention and anchor it firmly in the present task. Establish a clear starting point for each work session. Ambiguity about what to do first creates hesitation, which invites distraction. Define a precise, actionable objective for the session. Instead of work on project, draft the introduction for Chapter 2, or solve 3 practice problems. Clarity in the immediate task channels attention and reduces the energy wasted on indecision, creating a mental entryway into deep engagement. Eliminate environmental distractions. Visual clutter, notifications, and unnecessary stimuli compete for attention and fragment focus. Arrange a workspace that signals purpose and minimizes interruptions. Tools, materials, and references required for the task should be immediately accessible. By structuring the environment to support engagement, external demands on attention are reduced, allowing the mind to remain anchored in the task at hand. Use temporal boundaries to strengthen focus. Allocate specific blocks of uninterrupted time for concentrated work. During these blocks, commit fully to the task without multitasking or diversion. The brain responds positively to finite periods of immersion because it creates a predictable rhythm of effort and recovery. Time boundaries also create a sense of urgency and priority, increasing engagement and reducing the mental drift that accompanies indefinite work sessions. Anchor attention through micro-goals. Large tasks can overwhelm the mind, prompting avoidance or scattered effort. Break work into smaller, achievable steps that can be completed sequentially. Focusing on completing one step at a time channels energy directly into action, rather than allowing attention to wander. Each completed micro-goal reinforces momentum and provides tangible evidence of progress, making sustained concentration easier to maintain. Practice mental redirection intentionally. Whenever the mind drifts to outcomes, worries, or unrelated thoughts, consciously return attention to the present task. Repetition of this redirection strengthens cognitive control and trains the brain to prioritize what is immediately actionable. Over time, attention becomes more resilient to distraction, and the effort required to maintain focus decreases. This discipline of redirection is a cornerstone of productive obsession with work. Engage sensory awareness to enhance concentration. Notice the tactile, visual, and auditory elements of the task. The feel of pen against paper, the sound of keys typing, or the visual structure of data engages the senses, anchoring attention in the present. Sensory immersion reduces mind wandering by creating a multidimensional experience of the work. The body and mind act together, reinforcing presence and engagement. Minimize multitasking rigorously. Switching between tasks, fragments, attention, and decreases both speed and quality of work. Commit fully to one task before moving to the next. Multitasking creates cognitive fatigue and reduces the sense of progress. By focusing on one task exclusively, the mind develops depth, precision, and clarity, and the act of working becomes more absorbing and rewarding. Incorporate brief reflection intervals within sessions. Pausing periodically to assess progress and note challenges keeps attention anchored without breaking flow. Reflection is not a distraction. It is a deliberate observation that strengthens awareness of what is being done and ensures that effort remains aligned with objectives. These brief check-ins prevent drift while reinforcing mastery over the present moment. Leverage habit formation to support sustained attention. Repeatedly performing tasks at the same time or in the same context trains the brain to anticipate focus and engage automatically. Habits reduce cognitive load by eliminating constant decision-making, freeing mental energy for deep engagement with the task. Over time, structured routines reinforce the ability to concentrate naturally and consistently. Use physical cues to maintain focus. Posture, breathing, or subtle rituals, such as adjusting tools or organizing materials, can signal the mind that it is time to concentrate. These cues create a physiological state conducive to attention and help condition the mind to enter focus states more readily. Physical anchoring reinforces mental discipline, making engagement with the task habitual rather than optional. Recognize the role of mental fatigue and manage energy strategically. Attention is not infinite, and prolonged effort without rest diminishes effectiveness. Short breaks, movement, or mindfulness exercises can restore focus and prevent cognitive burnout. Structured recovery supports sustained engagement by replenishing the capacity for concentrated effort, allowing attention to remain sharp over longer periods. Actionable steps include identifying the immediate task, eliminating environmental distractions, defining temporal blocks for work, breaking tasks into micro-goals, practicing deliberate redirection of attention, engaging sensory awareness, avoiding multitasking, incorporating brief reflection intervals, establishing habits that support focus, using physical cues, and managing energy strategically. These practices together create a framework for consistently directing attention toward the present task, maximizing both efficiency and satisfaction in work. Focusing attention on the present task transforms the experience of work. The mind no longer drifts anxiously between outcomes, distractions, or regrets. Instead, energy is concentrated on what can be directly influenced. Immersion enhances quality, deepens understanding, and creates intrinsic satisfaction from effort itself. Obsession with the work grows naturally as the brain experiences the immediate reward of applied attention, reinforcing persistence, skill development, and consistent engagement over time. By anchoring in the present moment, work becomes both meaningful and absorbing. Each action is completed fully, mistakes are minimized, and learning is maximized. Attention trained in this way generates a sense of mastery and control, creating conditions for disciplined effort that is not dependent on external validation or delayed results. The act of engaging fully with the task itself becomes the source of motivation, satisfaction, and enduring performance. Number 10. Replace expectations with steady habits. Relying on expectations to motivate action is inherently unstable. Results are uncertain, outcomes are influenced by countless variables, and waiting for ideal circumstances often leads to procrastination or frustration. Expectations tie effort to external validation and future rewards, which are unpredictable. By contrast, steady habits create a reliable framework for sustained action. Habits convert behavior into automatic responses, reducing the mental burden of decision-making and ensuring that effort continues regardless of mood, motivation, or immediate results. Replacing expectations with habits shifts the focus from uncertainty to consistent action, creating the conditions for long-term achievement and a deep, sustainable obsession with work. The first step in this transformation is identifying areas where expectation-driven behavior dominates. Observe where tasks are postponed because outcomes seem unclear or success feels uncertain. These are the points where reliance on expectations undermines consistency. By recognizing these patterns, it becomes possible to replace them with deliberate routines that require action independent of results. The goal is not to abandon ambition, but to anchor effort in repeatable behavior rather than contingent outcome. Habits must be specific and structured. Vague intentions, like work harder or be more productive, leave too much room for fluctuation. A precise habit has a clear trigger, a defined action, and a repeatable pattern. For instance, instead of write daily, define write 300 words immediately after morning coffee. The trigger signals the brain to act. The action is achievable, and repetition builds consistency. Over time, these small, well-defined habits compound, producing significant progress without reliance on fluctuating expectations. Start small to ensure sustainability. Attempting to replace expectations with complex or large-scale habits too quickly often leads to failure. Select manageable behaviors that can be performed consistently and gradually increase difficulty or scope. This approach builds confidence and resilience, creating a psychological foundation where effort becomes natural. Each completed habit reinforces the identity of someone who acts reliably, further reducing dependence on motivation or expectation. Embed habits into existing routines to enhance reliability. Linking new behaviors to established patterns reduces friction and decision fatigue. For example, if morning exercise is already a routine, attaching a new habit such as journaling immediately afterward leverages the existing structure. Anchoring habits in familiar contexts ensures that action occurs automatically and consistently, without requiring additional energy to initiate. The more habitual a behavior becomes, the less it relies on expectations to trigger execution. Repetition is the cornerstone of habit formation. Each performance strengthens the neural pathways associated with the behavior, making it increasingly automatic. The brain begins to recognize the habit as a default response, eliminating the need for constant deliberation. By focusing on consistent repetition rather than intermittent bursts of effort, work becomes a predictable and dependable process. Habits build a stable infrastructure for action that functions even when motivation or external incentives are absent. Decouple effort from emotional states. Expectation-driven behavior is heavily influenced by mood, energy, and perceived likelihood of success. Habits bypass this vulnerability because they operate independently of emotional fluctuations. Performing a habit does not require excitement or confidence. It requires adherence to a structured process. Over time, this reliability strengthens mental resilience, allowing work to continue despite external challenges or internal doubts. Tracking habits reinforces consistency and provides evidence of commitment. Visual logs, streaks, or journals record each completed action, creating tangible feedback. This feedback does not depend on the quality or outcome of the task. It measures engagement itself. By observing a continuous chain of habit completion, motivation is supported intrinsically, and the mind internalizes the value of steady action rather than waiting for uncertain rewards. Reflection complements habit-based systems by highlighting patterns and improvements. Regularly review habits to evaluate adherence, notice progress, and identify areas for refinement. Reflection strengthens awareness without undermining the automaticity of the behavior. It provides insight into how habits contribute to long-term objectives, reinforces commitment, and ensures that each action remains purposeful. The combination of automatic execution and reflective assessment creates a robust framework for growth. Anticipate obstacles and build contingencies into habits. Life circumstances, energy dips, or unexpected interruptions can threaten consistency. By defining backup plans, such as shorter versions of a habit or alternative timings, the behavior remains intact even under disruption. Reliability is strengthened because the system prioritizes adherence over perfection, emphasizing steady engagement rather than sporadic excellence. Habits thus act as a safeguard against the unpredictability that expectations often exacerbate. Gradually expand habits to compound impact. Once foundational behaviors are established, introduce additional routines that complement and enhance earlier habits. Each layer builds upon the previous one, creating a network of consistent action that propels skill, knowledge, and productivity forward. Incremental expansion ensures that growth is sustainable and embedded in behavior, rather than reliant on sudden motivation or fortuitous circumstances. Focus on process-oriented habits rather than outcome-oriented actions. The reward lies in completing the behavior itself, not in achieving a specific external result. Writing 300 words, practicing a skill for 30 minutes, or reviewing notes each day becomes intrinsically valuable because the habit ensures continuous engagement and improvement. By emphasizing the action rather than the expectation of reward, the mind develops a natural satisfaction in effort, reducing stress and procrastination caused by uncertainty. Actionable steps include identifying behaviors dominated by expectations, defining precise and repeatable habits, anchoring new habits in existing routines, starting small, committing to repetition, tracking completion, reflecting on patterns, anticipating obstacles, and gradually expanding the system of habits. By applying these steps consistently, effort becomes automatic, reliable, and intrinsically rewarding, replacing the fragile motivation that arises from uncertain outcomes. Replacing expectations with steady habits transforms the approach to work. Action no longer depends on fleeting motivation, unpredictable results, or imagined rewards. The mind becomes anchored in routine, disciplined engagement, and consistent effort. Over time, habits compound into skill, mastery, and achievement, producing results organically as a byproduct of sustained action. Obsession with work emerges naturally because the process itself becomes both automatic and rewarding. Steady habits create a foundation for reliability, resilience, and long-term growth. Each repeated action strengthens neural pathways, reinforces discipline, and builds momentum. By focusing on consistent effort rather than anticipated outcomes, work becomes a controlled and predictable process. The energy that once went into worrying about expectations is redirected into action, making every day productive and every effort meaningful. Habits replace uncertainty with structure, creating an environment in which engagement, focus, and progress are inevitable. In the end, replacing expectations with steady habits ensures that attention, effort, and persistence are driven by reliable behavior rather than contingent rewards. Work becomes a source of intrinsic satisfaction, and progress emerges naturally from repeated, disciplined action. The mind, trained to rely on habits, no longer waits for perfect conditions or ideal outcomes. Instead, it acts consistently, producing results as a consequence of engagement and creating a sustainable path toward mastery and meaningful achievement.